Yo, what's going on guys? Chadley here, and today we're going to be looking at Wheel of Pain Amara for Mayhem 2.0. This is going to help you guys get through Mayhem 10 absolutely no problem, and if you guys want to use this on lower Mayhems, you can easily do so as well with great results. So one thing with this build that I was kind of worried about after starting to play 2.0 and Mayhem 10 is it definitely seemed like all the new weapons were really the only things you could use. A ton of top tier weapons from before 2.0 really fell off and are barely even usable right now. So it's really good to see that the wagon wheel actually still does great work here in Mayhem 10. Now you're obviously going to need good anointments. This is Mayhem 10. You're going to need the best anointments and parts possible to have the best results possible. So here we have a wagon wheel with the 390 anointment. I have 100 ASE as well, and I definitely felt like the 300 weapon damage on enemies above 90 health is the way to go. But if you guys want to use the 100 ASE one, you can, but I definitely felt like this one gave me a little bit better results, but the 100 ASE is still viable. So this gun you're only going to be using in groups. On single targets, it does not do very well. It could kind of do single target damage before 2.0, but now you really need to only use this thing in groups. But luckily, we have Amara, who is very good at switching weapons with some of her skills. So when you guys just encounter a single target, swap over to the PHASEZERKER, and you guys will have no issue whatsoever. On this one, I like to have a fire one with a 390 anointment. This is going to allow you guys to just tear through shields and armor, even though you are using fire. And then once that anointment deactivates, once the enemy's bottom health bar is below that 90%, the fire is going to just melt through them and you guys will take them out absolutely no problem. I've tried ×2 on this build with some other elements and it works perfectly fine. There's no real huge difference between ×1 and ×2 KOs. So just keep that in mind. You just need a full auto one. The burst fire ones kind of suck. Try to get one with the most damage as you can. Like above 5,000 damage is definitely really good to have in a KOs. And full auto is the way to go. And then after that, these two are going to cover basically all mobs for you. And so our last two weapons are going to be focused on kind of some beefier enemies, stuff like armor and bosses. So we're going to be using a corrosive monarch, at least for the takedown if you guys aren't running an area with that much armor. So just switch out these for like something else. You could use another KOs you could use like a normal damage monarch. An OPQ works very well on this build. Reflux works very well as well for really anything. Even though this thing does corrosive damage, you can use this on just like normal health and shield mobs and you guys will tear through them. The Plague Bearer works pretty nice, and Sandhawks are really great for bossing with this build, as you guys saw in the opening little montage. But then otherwise, I probably wouldn't use the 390 anointment on these boss killing weapons. Maybe with the yellow cake, you guys could keep the 390 anointment on there because it can one-shot quite a few things. But with the Monarch, you're not going to one-tap anything. So you're going to lose this anointment pretty quick. Obviously, it'll help you get through like a boss's shield or something. But preferably 100 ASE would be most likely the way to go, or consecutive hits. So you guys can definitely get a better version than I have here. And I actually kind of like ×4. The ×8 seem to run out of ammo a little too quick for me, and then I just get stuck reloading. But it's completely up to you which one you guys want to use. I would just suggest the consecutive hits or 100 ASE as the anointment. And then like I said, right now there's not too much that we can really use for armored bosses. So you could just easily just throw on this yellow cake and you could kill True Takedown Wotan in just a couple seconds with this thing. You guys should know by now how good the yellow cake is. If you guys don't want to use this gun, just throw on a Sandhawk. These things work great. Consecutive hits or 100 ASE work awesome. And if you guys are bossing like outside of the takedown, try to get a phase cast Sandhawk. These work fantastic because during boss fights you are going to switch to phase cast, as it's going to get you guys some more damage because phase grasp does not really work on a lot of bosses. And then we're still using the transformer as our shield. It's going to give us a little bit more survivability and such, but if you guys have no trouble surviving with the transformer, go ahead and throw on an old god, and you guys will do a little bit more damage and still have a decent amount of survivability. And then our grenade, we can either use Its Piss or Hunter Seeker. I don't have a Hunter Seeker on me right now, but I always like to use just Its Piss just so I can make the enemies take a little bit more damage, and it's a little bit easier for certain boss fights. Then obviously we're going to be using a PHASEZERKER. I'm still using the same PHASEZERKER that I have for all iterations of this build, and this thing's still level 50 and it holds up perfectly fine. Just try to get one with good passives. The skills on PHASEZERKERs really don't matter all that much. And then finally, we are going to be using the Pearl still, and I like to have fire rate and magazine on mine. But otherwise, let's go ahead and move on to our skill tree. And after the skill trees, we'll move to our modifiers. So first off, starting in Mystical Assault, we're going to do 3 points into Fast Hands for that reload speed and weapon swap speed that's huge right now. 5 points into Do Harm. I do like taking the most advantage out of Ties That Bind, and you guys can get some crazy Remnant Orbs out of this using Ties That Bind. And then I like to just throw 1 point into Violent Tapestry just because we are using rush stacks and stuff. Just why not get a little bit status effect chance in there. And then we're going to do 3 points into Transcend. This is going to help us out with our phase cast on bosses or Ties That Bind on just kind of normal enemies if they somehow don't die. And then 3 points into Alacrity for the reload speed, 3 points into Laid Bare, 3 points into Wrath, 3 points into Awakening to kind of boost our Do Harm and stuff like that, all of our rush stack things. And then 1 point into Remnant for the Overkill Orb, and then 1 point into Avatar so we can cast our ability twice and get more rush stacks. Also, I should note our augment, we are going to be using Soul Sap. It's usually the way to go. It doesn't really hurt us, and it also helps our wagon wheel get a little bit more survivability. And one of the coolest changes to this build right now is that Infusion now works on normal weapons to proc sustainment. So we're going to put 1 point into Infusion again so we can get that healing off of the wagon wheel and still not really hurt our damage with our other elemental guns. So we're just going to put 1 point into there, 3 points into Steady Hands, and 5 points into Anima, 5 points into Tempest, 1 point into Dread, 3 points into Indiscriminate, 1 point Deep Well, 1 point Catharsis, just for the extra healing that it can provide when we're using our wagon wheel, 5 points into Sustainment for that max lifesteal, and 1 point into Forceful Expression. Also, I just realized I'm not on Ties That Bind. We are going to be using Ties That Bind right now for all of our mobbing sections and the takedown. But if you guys are just doing like boss farming, just switch over to the phase cast and you'll be good to go with those. And then finally, our 3 points are always going to go into Personal Space. This thing just does way too much damage and is one of Amara's best skills. And for 3 points in a tier 1, have to pick it up. Alright, so now looking at our modifiers, because these do matter for builds. This is something you guys are going to have to re-roll. Also, I get this question a lot. How do you guys re-roll your modifiers? Down here in the bottom right of your screen, whatever platform you're on, they'll say what button to press for re-roll. So just go ahead and do that infinitely until you get to the modifiers that you want, and then go ahead and hit apply here. But for our easy, I really do like Speed Demon or Slayer. Speed Demon really helps you out with the speed and enemies don't really hit you. Also, Slayer is awesome with Ties That Bind because once an enemy starts going blue where you can kind of Slayer punch him and insta-kill him, you're going to do so much damage. And if you throw him up into your Ties That Bind, every enemy that is tethered to that enemy is going to take that damage, that shared damage, which will insta-kill literally everything, including bosses, which is crazy. So you guys can pick which one of those you want for the easy. For medium, I always suggest Healy Avenger. This thing almost never comes into play, and it actually helps you out basically all the time. There's very little times it actually hurts you. So that's why I really like Healy Avenger. And then for our hard modifier, right now I have Chain Gang on. This one really isn't too much of an issue. I personally like Laser Flare a little bit better. And also the Healing Drone one is pretty nice to have, but like I said in some previous videos, it's taken out of the game right now because it was kind of bugged and causing some audio issues. So once they add that back into the game, you guys could roll that one as well. And then finally for our very hard modifier, this is kind of a tough choice for Amara. There's nothing that really too great for her. I personally just like Roguelite. We really don't go down all that much with this build. Amara is very tanky with sustainment and stuff like that. So you really don't go down very much. And even when you do go down, if you guys have the Guardian rank too angry to die, you can basically cancel out Roguelite and get second wins as long as you just start shooting. Just hold the trigger like once you start going down and aiming at an enemy. And you guys will cause enough damage where Roguelite won't actually kick in right away. And you guys can sit there for quite a few seconds and try to get a second win before you actually just insta-die. That's why I really like Roguelite. I've tried Buddy System, but it actually kind of screws with Ties That Bind fairly often. Ties That Bind doesn't really tether the drone, so a lot of enemies just don't really get affected by your Ties That Bind because they'll just be immune. So that's why I always usually pick Roguelite, but that one is going to be completely up to you guys. Alright, so today we're going to actually change it up. We're going to do Slaughter Shaft to show off this build and just kind of how to play it. I always just kind of take out barrels with Amara first. But anyways, on single targets, basically always use the Chaosen. You'll be good to go. And then in groups like this, you can go ahead and ties them and pull out the wagon wheel, and you'll kill basically everything in just a couple shots. Once you guys get some nice little... So right now, there was only like one guy, so I kind of just pulled out the Chaosen for that. This is kind of the main thing we're kind of using right now, as the old weapons really don't do that much. The wagon wheel definitely holds its own compared to a lot of the other old weapons, but when you compare it to a lot of the new stuff, it's pretty tough to go back and use these all the time, kind of like how we used to. That's why we are mainly going to be using the new weapons. Hopefully in the future they'll change that. That's why I have a ton of hyper focuses and stuff like that in our save file for this build, because if they ever boost those back up to at least even somewhere close to what they used to be, there'll be really good options for this build. So yeah guys, that is going to wrap up this build video. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a thumbs up on it to let me know. If you guys want to see more Borderlands builds, content, all that good stuff, make sure to subscribe, because there will be a ton of content here in the near future. Also a lot of Flak builds coming. As we know, we're not really getting any fixes for him for his broken skills at the moment, so we're just gonna have to kind of build around that for now. So definitely keep your eyes out for that. Otherwise, hopefully I'll see you guys over on Twitch. But otherwise, have a fantastic day, and I will catch you all in the next video. See ya.